Imagine you are standing at the edge of a dance floor. The lights are like perfectly dim. Your favorite song is playing.
Oh, yeah. And you are surrounded by literally every single person you care about.
Right, exactly. It is, by all accounts, just a flawless moment.
Yeah, it's the absolute peak of a celebration. I mean, it's a moment most people spend years anticipating.
But now I want you to visualize this giant glowing price tag floating right above that dance floor.
Oh, boy. Yeah, that changes things.
It really does. And like next to it, visualize an even bigger glowing number showing what that exact same amount of money could have become in 20 years. Suddenly, the music sounds just a little bit different.
It completely shifts the gravity of the room. Because, well, we love to think of weddings purely as romantic milestones, right? A celebration of love.
Which they are.
They are, absolutely. But beneath the flowers, the catering, and the venue rentals, there is this massive financial engine at work.
Yeah.
And very often, I mean, it is an engine that is actively working against the couple's future.
Welcome to this deep dive into the hidden opportunity costs of one of life's biggest milestones, the wedding day.
Yeah, we're looking at how the price of a single beautiful celebration can echo through the next 2 decades of a couple's financial life.
And to really understand this, we are pulling together some incredible sources. We've got long-term market data from Vanguard, some really fascinating money psychology research from Cornell and the National Bureau of Economic Research.
Which is wild stuff, by the way.
It is. Plus, we're looking at some eye-opening real-life case studies of couples who navigated these exact choices.
Our mission for today is pretty straightforward. We want to uncover why perfectly rational, budget-conscious people suddenly just abandon all their financial rules for one single day.
Right. We want to expose that invisible price tag we were just talking about and, most importantly, figure out how you can celebrate the biggest day of your life without accidentally giving away your financial future.
Okay, let's unpack this, starting with the raw numbers. Because when I first saw this figure in our research, I genuinely thought someone had added an extra zero by mistake. I know exactly which number you're talking about. The $55,000 average.
Yes. I mean, $55,000. The average American wedding right now costs roughly 55 grand.
It's wild.
For a party that lasts, what, 6 to 8 hours if you stretch the reception? $55,000 just gone in a single weekend.
Yeah, it sounds staggering when you isolate it like that. And here is the core tension we need to explore today. Money spent today stops working for you the exact moment it leaves your checking account.
Right.
But money invested today keeps working for you, silently, year after year.
And this is where that Vanguard market data really puts things into perspective.
Oh, the math on this is crazy.
It really is.
Yeah.
If you take that exact same $55,000 and instead of spending it on a weekend, you invest it. Assuming Vanguard's historical average stock market return of roughly 7%, and that is after adjusting for inflation. By the way, do you know what that number becomes in 20 years?
It grows to over $400,000.
Over $400,000 from one single weekend.
The math is just undeniable. And, the underlying logic making that happen is compound growth.
Right, compound growth.
Instead of the usual finance textbook stuff, let's think of it like a snowball. You start with a small snowball at the top of a very long hill that is your initial $55,000 investment.
Okay, I'm with you.
As you push it down the hill, it picks up more snow.
Mm-hmm.
That's your return. But you don't scrape the new snow off, you just let it keep rolling. Soon, the new snow is picking up its own snow. Over 20 years, you don't just have a snowball anymore. You have a massive boulder.
And this is the catch, right? That snowball only grows if you give it time and you don't smash it to pieces.
Precisely. Compound growth requires a multi-decade runway, and it has to be left undisturbed. A wedding, on the other hand, is like taking that initial snowball and melting it for a glass of water. In the short run, the wedding wins because the joy and the warmth are immediate.
Yeah, you don't really feel the loss of a giant snowball that doesn't exist yet.
Exactly. But in the long run, the snowball wins decisively.
I hear that, but I have to push back a little here.
Go for it.
Listening to this, it feels almost, I don't know, clinical. Like, are we saying people shouldn't have weddings at all? Should a couple just go to a dark, windowless room, sign a legal document in total silence, and stare at a spreadsheet together so they can be rich in 20 years?
Right.
I mean, are we just supposed to cancel joy for the sake of an investment portfolio?
That is a fantastic point, and I am so glad you brought it up. We have to be super clear here. The goal of money awareness is never to cancel celebration. Human beings need rituals. We need joy.
Absolutely.
The issue isn't the celebration itself. It's about understanding the true weight of the trade-off.
Yeah.
It is about making the choice with your eyes wide open rather than just, sleepwalking into a massive financial commitment.
So it is about scale. It's like the difference between buying a lovely dinner to celebrate and buying the entire restaurant.
Yes, exactly. I want you, the listener, to visualize your own financial snowball for a second. What could your life look like if you started rolling it early in your 20s or 30s, instead of melting a massive chunk of it on a single weekend?
Wow.
It is not about saying no to the wedding.
Yeah.
It is asking if the scale of the wedding is worth the scale of the trade-off for your specific future.
Which brings up this totally fascinating contradiction. The couples in our case studies, they aren't reckless people.
No, not at all.
They pay their rent on time, they compare prices at the grocery store, they are normally very careful with their budgets. Then they get engaged and suddenly they're bleeding money without a second thought. What on earth happens to the brain during wedding planning?
It is a complete psychological hijack.
Hijack. Really?
Oh, absolutely. The National Bureau of Economic Research has actually tracked how different categories of household spending respond to normal budget discipline. They found that highly emotional life events and weddings are at the very top of that list. They are wildly resistant to our normal financial rules.
I felt this when I was helping a friend plan her wedding. We were looking at expenses, and it was like the money didn't feel real.
Yep.
It just didn't feel like it was coming out of a normal checking account. It felt completely disconnected from the concept of paying rent or buying gas. Why does the brain do that?
Well, researchers at Cornell have a brilliant explanation for this mechanism. They use a concept called mental accounting.
Mental accounting.
Right? Usually when you make a large purchase, say repairing a roof or buying a car, your brain applies a healthy level of caution. You feel a physical pinch. It's the pain of paying.
Ugh, yes. We all know that pain.
But with mental accounting, our brains take the money associated with a wedding and place it into a separate, highly protected mental bucket.
Oh my gosh, I know this feeling. It is exactly like vacation calories.
Vacation calories.
Think about it. You are at a nice resort, they offer you a massive chocolate dessert at 2 in the afternoon, and you just eat it because, well, I'm on vacation, it doesn't count.
That is so true.
You somehow convince yourself that the laws of biology are temporarily suspended just because you are wearing a swimsuit and sitting near a pool. We do the exact same thing with wedding money. We tell ourselves, this isn't real money, this is wedding money.
What's fascinating here is that the brain actually processes these emotionally significant purchases by bypassing the pain centers entirely. By putting it in that special vacation calorie bucket, you neutralize the normal financial guilt.
Wow. So the guilt is just gone.
Poof, gone. And this is how budgets quietly ballooned. You start with a very sensible plan for an 80-person guest list. But because the money feels somewhat imaginary and the emotional stakes are so high, the list slowly grows to 200 people.
And the internal alarms never go off.
Never. The brain has labeled this spending as untouchable.
And there is another trap I noticed when we were looking into this. Say a couple starts looking at venues. The very first place they visit says it costs like $15,000 just to rent the empty room.
Just the room, nothing else.
Right. Obviously, they panic. But then the next place they visit says they only charge $10,000. Suddenly, they feel like they are getting an incredible deal, even if their original budget for the room was only $5,000. What is happening there?
Yeah, that is a classic psychological trap known as anchoring, and the wedding industry absolutely thrives on it.
Anchoring.
When you heard that initial $15,000 figure, your brain took that number and dropped it like a heavy anchor into your subconscious. It instantly became your new mental baseline. So the $10,000 venue doesn't feel like a $5,000 overspend anymore. It feels like a $5,000 saving.
That is terrifying because it cascades, doesn't it? Every subsequent expense feels perfectly reasonable by comparison.
Exactly.
If you just drop 10 grand on an empty room, what is another 3 grand for a photographer? It is just a fraction of the venue.
And that is how the numbers stack up silently. It moves couples thousands of dollars past their limits before they even realize what is happening.
So if our brains are biologically wired to ignore the rules when there's a wedding cake in the room, what happens when the honeymoon ends and the confetti actually settles? Because society feeds us some very dangerous myths about this specific type of spending.
They absolutely do. Let's tackle the first big myth right away. The pervasive idea that a bigger, more expensive wedding somehow translates to a stronger, happier marriage.
Right, like you're buying relationship insurance or something.
Exactly. The assumption is that if you go all out, you are investing in the longevity of the relationship. But the research shows absolutely zero link between the size of the wedding budget and long-term marital happiness.
Zero link.
In fact, financial strain is a primary driver of marital friction.
And then there is another myth that ties directly into the mental accounting we talked about. The idea that wedding debt is somehow different or special debt, that it shouldn't be viewed with the same anxiety as credit card debt from a mall shopping spree.
Yeah, financially speaking, the math doesn't care that you were wearing a tuxedo or a white dress when you borrowed the money.
Ah,
$1 of wedding debt compounds against you just as relentlessly as any high-interest consumer debt.
this brings us to the story of Sarah and Michael from the case studies. This one really illustrates the danger. They are in their late 20s, they both have good jobs, and they are normally very responsible people. They sat down and logically agreed on a $40,000 budget.
Which is a very solid, clearly defined starting point.
It really is. But then the mental accounting and the anchoring took over. By the time they signed the final catering contract and paid the last vendor, they had spent nearly $70,000.
Ouch.
And the hardest part to swallow, $12,000 of that was sitting on a credit card charging 20% interest.
20%. Let's break down the mechanics of why that event debt is so damaging. If you take out a mortgage, you have a physical house that ideally appreciates in value.
Right.
If you get a car loan, you have a vehicle that drives you to work to earn an income. But event debt leaves no lasting physical asset behind. You are financing a memory at a 20% premium.
And Sarah and Michael hit that wall incredibly hard. 8 months after the wedding, they were sitting at their kitchen table, staring at their monthly credit card statement. And Michael has this brutal realization. He realizes they are paying high-interest monthly charges on flowers that literally wilted the same week they bloomed.
Oh, wow.
They were trapped paying 20% interest on dead flowers.
That is a painful wake-up call. But honestly, it is incredibly common. Federal Reserve data shows a significant portion of couples carry event-related debt directly into their marriage.
Really? Just right off the bat.
Right off the bat. And Bankrate surveys consistently highlight wedding costs as a top stress point during a couple's critical first year together. Instead of building their foundation, they're digging themselves out of a hole from day one.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. What do guests actually care about? Because couples like Sarah and Michael often fall into what I call the Instagram effect.
The Instagram effect, I like that.
Yeah, they book a 12-piece live band instead of a DJ, or they order imported centerpieces, not because they personally care about those things, but because they want to match the aesthetic of a friend's wedding they saw online. But when you look at all the data on guest experiences, the guests don't remember the price of the floral arrangements.
They really don't. They don't remember the customized napkins or the imported table runners either. What guests consistently report remembering is the warmth of the room, the human connection, and, whether the food was decent.
Exactly.
They remember how the evening felt, not how much it cost to stage. Now, to their credit, Sarah and Michael did something incredible once they had that painful realization about the flowers.
They did.
They aggressively attacked the debt, paid it completely off in 18 months, and then, and this is crucial, they immediately redirected those exact same monthly payments into their retirement accounts.
They took control back. They stopped the bleeding and started rolling their snowball. Which naturally leads us to the most important question today. How do we actually fight the psychology and win the math from the very beginning?
That's the million-dollar question.
Literally.
Yeah.
How do we rewrite the vows of financial planning before the contracts are signed?
Well, it requires actionable, deliberate friction to counteract the emotional brain. Let's look at Jennifer and David's story. They faced a very unique temptation. Jennifer's parents had actually saved a lump sum of cash for her wedding since she was a little girl.
Oh, wow. The ultimate trap. A massive pile of money sitting there, specifically earmarked just for a party.
It would have been so easy to just spend it all on a lavish event. But they sat down and made a deliberate choice. They decided to spend 60% of that money on a beautiful, modest wedding, and they took the remaining 40% and invested it immediately.
Amazing.
10 years later, that 40% had grown into the down payment for their very first home.
That is the snowball in real life. You give up a little bit of the temporary warmth and you get a house.
Exactly.
And there was another unnamed couple in our sources who achieved a massive financial win just by ruthlessly managing their guest list.
The hardest part of wedding planning.
Oh, totally. But they realized that every single head adds a cascading cost. the plate, the drinks, the favors, the larger venue space. So they cut their list from 200 people down to 100 people.
That one difficult conversation saved them $15,000 instantly.
And they didn't just absorb that 15,000 back into an upgraded wedding dress or whatever. They invested it. And that money is now on track to become $60,000 by the time they hit their mid-50s.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, what these couples are doing is establishing vital financial boundaries. And there are specific, practical steps you can take to do exactly the same thing. Step 1. Set your total budget before you look at a single venue or vendor.
Because if you look first, the anchor drops and you lose your baseline.
Precisely. You must define the numbers when your rational brain is fully engaged and emotion hasn't entered the chat yet.
Step 2 is the 24-hour rule, and I think this is brilliant.
It's a game changer.
Never sign a contract or send a deposit on the exact same day you meet a vendor or tour space. Always sleep on it. Physiologically, why does this work so well?
Because it short-circuits the emotional brain. When you are touring a gorgeous venue and listening to a great sales pitch, your adrenaline spikes. You are caught up in the romance. Sleeping on it forces that protected mental accounting bucket to merge back with your rational, everyday financial brain.
You sober up financially.
Right. After 24 hours, the adrenaline fades, and you can clearly see if a cost feels necessary because it truly aligns with your goals, or if you were just caught up in the excitement of the moment.
Another crucial strategy is pricing the marriage license separately from the celebration. I love this framing so much. A marriage license costs, what, 50 to $100 depending on where you live?
Yeah, that is the true floor. That $50 is the actual cost of getting married. Everything above that, the dress, the cake, the DJ, the venue, is a discretionary celebration budget.
Such a good way to look at it.
Separating those two concepts keeps you incredibly grounded. It reminds you every single day that the spending is a choice, not a legal or emotional requirement for the relationship to succeed.
We also have to mention the emergency fund. Do not let the wedding fund quietly consume the emergency fund. A wedding is a planned joy. A medical bill or a blown transmission is an unplanned crisis that cannot share the same dollars.
That boundary touches heavily on family dynamics too, which is often the silent, heavy driver behind so much of this budget creep.
Oh, the guilt-driven spending. The classic, but your second cousin twice removed simply must be invited. It will look terrible if they aren't.
Yeah, and the only defense against that is early, honest conversations. If parents are contributing financially, or even if they just have strong cultural expectations, you have to talk about the budget realities out loud, early in the process. Silent resentment or unspoken pressure is what blows up budgets.
It is so important to remember that these principles apply no matter where you are in life, whether you are in what financial planners call the foundation stage, in your 20s and 30s, just starting out and trying to roll that snowball,
Right.
or maybe the pressure stage in your 30s and 40s, juggling a mortgage and kids, or even the correction stage in your 40s and 50s, maybe funding a child's wedding while sweating over your own retirement portfolio.
The habits compound, just like the money does. It is never too late to start applying them, because a wedding isn't an isolated event. It really is the opening chapter of a shared financial life. The way you communicate about a venue deposit today, the way you handle the tension of a budget today, that is the exact same way you will communicate about a mortgage application or a child's tuition bill tomorrow.
So what does this all mean? If we trace this whole journey back, we started by looking at a $55,000 party that quietly steals a $400,000 future. We looked at how our brains trick us with mental accounting and anchoring, dropping prices into protected buckets that make it feel entirely okay to pay 20% interest on dead flowers.
Yeah. But we also saw the incredible power of taking the wheel. Choosing to invest in a shared future like Jennifer and David, turning their wedding restraint into a house, rather than just maxing out a single day.
Because at the end of the day, having radical financial honesty with your partner is actually one of the most genuinely romantic things you can build together. A solid financial foundation lasts way longer than the wedding tape.
It creates a foundation of trust that outlives any single celebration.
To you listening right now,
Hey.
your financial future isn't just a destination you magically arrive at one day. It is a direction you choose every single day through small awareness and deliberate choices.
The snowball only grows if you protect it early on.
Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final, slightly provocative thought to chew on. We've spent this whole time talking about how our brains use mental accounting to easily justify wild wedding spending by putting it in a special, highly protected emotional bucket. So ask yourself, what other major life milestones, maybe buying your first house, having a baby, or planning that dream retirement trip, are you unconsciously shielding from financial reality right now? Where else is that glowing price tag floating, invisible, just waiting to be seen?
These thoughts, these questions, they don't have to stop here. Money Geeks has many more podcasts and videos just like this one. Subscribe to the channel and explore other episodes. They all flow the same honest way. If this podcast felt genuinely useful to you, share it with even one person in your life. That one share can bring a real change in someone's life, and it helps Money Geeks reach more people who truly need this. If this brought you real value, look for the Join button right next to the Money Geeks logo below this video. Click it and become a member of the Money Support Circle. Your support helps honest money awareness reach thousands who are silently struggling. Money Geeks moves forward because of you. Thank you so much from the heart for being here.